Donald Trump has officially won the 2024 presidential election. And in today's video, you and I are going to be reacting to how the Democrats are reacting. How are the Democrats feeling about this stunning loss at the hands of Donald J. Trump and the Red Wave? With no further ado, let's dive in.
Harris's loss, a stunning defeat for Democrats.
Stunning.
Devastated.
She didn't look that devastated. He looks devastated. She looks devastated. Oh my word. Look at all those flags.
All of Midwest states that Democrats had counted on. Improving on his 2020 margins in more than 2,000 counties nationwide.
Wow.
In the key swing state of Pennsylvania, Harris underperforming President Biden's results. And further down the ballot, Republicans also flipped the Senate to their side.
Yeah, the Red Wave really came out in full force. And it was interesting. I'm from Pittsburgh. I live in Pittsburgh. I was watching the results as Pennsylvania started to showcase the votes, as the votes started to trickle out. And Kamala jumped out to a huge lead early on, 77% to 22%, very quickly. Now, this was because they were only counting votes in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, along with Erie as well, three areas that are always very Democratic, specifically Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, the Democratic hubs here in Pennsylvania. Looking back on it, she probably needed to be up 90 or 95%. She basically had to get every single vote in the cities because even with that commanding lead early on, it didn't matter. He was still able to flip Pennsylvania pretty easily with the rural votes.
America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate.
He's getting more orange.
Now for Democrats, the soul-searching begins.
The soul searching.
Unprecedented race with Harris stepping in as the presidential candidate. Just 100 days ago,
Look at Joe smile.
withdrew. Harris tried to distance herself from Biden, but perhaps was still hampered by his legacy.
Yeah,
This is about
no kidding.
What the Democrats did while in office over the last 4 years. Inflation, which was so high during much of this administration,
Yeah.
and many people are still feeling the pain of that.
This is what I always say, and I'm not the first person to say this. I did not coin this phrase. You may have heard it before, but it's the economy, stupid. If the economy sucks while you're the president, you're probably not going to get reelected again. There's a reason why Trump lost in 2020, and that was because of the lockdowns. That was because of all of the stuff going on geopolitically. That was because the economy went in the tubes with those very drastic measures that were put in place. Even with 3.5, maybe not great years, but objectively not poor years, meaning Trump at least had a middle ground presidency during his first 4 years. He wasn't necessarily great. He wasn't necessarily bad. It doesn't matter because the economy was so poor going into that election. It's the old phrase, what have you done for me lately? Not what have you done for me before? Even though the stock market ripped under Trump's first administration, didn't matter at the end. Same thing here.
Listed the economy as a major issue.
No
Harris
crap.
Also underperforming in key areas.
Where she's coming up short are in the cities.
Even struggling
Yeah.
with strongholds like New York and Virginia.
That's another huge one. New York. Did you see the numbers? The numbers were really tight. I was fascinated to see how close New York and Illinois were. New York was a 54-45 split, which is pretty strong if it was a state that's more typically purple. But that's a blue stronghold, and yet Trump got more and more support in New York. He got more and more support in Illinois. It was a 44.5 to 55 race in Illinois. It was far closer. Chicago was not even heavily blue, or at least not as heavily blue, which was very, very strange.
Quite a massive campaign blitz from major Democratic stars. Harris also came up short with key minority groups. According to exit polls, Latino men favoring Trump by a 10-point margin.
Latinos for Trump.
President Biden by 23 points.
Yeah, that's a big
4
flip.
years ago.
That's a big flip.
Democrats now face an uphill battle.
Mhm.
It is time for a new generation of leadership in America.
That's true.
With Harris's message clearly not resonating with enough voters, Democrats are now left trying to sort out how to turn the page now. And already you're beginning to hear questions in terms of that Monday morning, or in this case Wednesday morning, quarterbacking among Democrats. Democrats among the questions right now, whether it would have made better sense for President Biden after Democratic successes in the midterms in 2022 to have stepped down then. Remember, he promised to be a transitional president in the past to allow for a full primary for the Democrats to pick their candidate going forward and perhaps to give that candidate more time to gear up for this battle with Donald Trump. The bottom line is there are so many questions, so few answers, and the Democrats have a lot of figuring out what to do next that begins right now.
Yeah.
All right, Peter, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the Democratic camp, who of note is young and full of vitality, has good policies that are geared towards prosperity, that are geared towards peace and security and strength, it's hard to find. Granted, the Republicans don't really have a lot of these guys either. They're a lot deeper, but even the Republicans are going to have some questions to answer over the next few years. Even though they have this mandate, as in the country has given Trump and the Republicans the green light to do whatever they deem necessary to get the economy back on track, to get the country back in a great place. They still have to do it. And then 4 years down the line, they got to see who's going to step up. Is it going to be JD? Is it going to be Vivek? Is it going to be one of these governors? We don't know. There's still questions to answer.
Turn to Hallie Jackson and Kristen Welker. So let's talk about that. There was going to be a lot of soul searching and hand wringing and probably some finger pointing. And let's just start where Peter brought it up. I mean, is the fundamental, the original sin here that Biden stayed in the race when perhaps he should have stepped aside and had an open primary, and perhaps Democrats would have had a better shot? Is that one of the lessons Democrats are talking about?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that Democrats are talking about, the timing of when he stepped aside, because remember, there was so much debate, even when he did step down in the summer, about potentially holding an open primary. Could that have made Vice President Harris a stronger candidate if she were the one who had emerged at the top of the ticket after a robust primary process? And also that condensed period of campaigning deprived her, I think, of the long runway that a typical candidate has to really lay out what they see their vision as if they were to win office.
Yeah.
Trump winning the popular vote right now, the map looks almost all red, and there were a lot of things the Harris campaign was counting on. They were counting on a lot of women coming out. They were probably counting on a lot of minorities coming out. A lot of them did come out, but many of them came out for Trump.
That's right, and not enough of them came out for her. I spoke with one person close with her, I want to say 12 hours before polls closed, maybe it was 18 hours before polls closed, who said, listen, I think we are going to see less of an underperformance with Black and Latino voters than people are predicting here because of what they had been seeing. That was simply not the case, right? Because we see it in these exit polls and we see it in the results in these counties after county where you've seen, very blue in 2016, less blue in 2020, red in this year in places like Texas, right? Some of these heavily Latino counties in parts of Texas here. What's so interesting, and Savannah and Hoda, we talk about this, and you've said this on other contexts and other nights, is having a bit of humility here. And I do think that as journalists, political pundits out there, et cetera, there will have to be a reckoning inside the Democratic Party, but we don't yet fully know what that looks like, right?
We don't even know partially or half of partially what that looks like.
There are some takeaways that I think Democrats are having to process at this moment. You also look at people who are showing up to vote for the first time. And remember, these first-time voters, they broke for Joe Biden 4 years ago. They broke for Donald Trump this year. So there's something about the Democratic messaging, the Democratic candidate, obviously that didn't work.
And what's so notable as well, think about it. This is the first presidential election after Roe v. Wade was overturned. We spent a lot of time talking about split ticket voters. And the way to think about it may not be in the context of president versus Senate, but rather the fact that you still have people energized, with the exception of the state of Florida, around some of these measures, 10 different states to enshrine abortion rights.
Yeah.
And yet, Democrats thought that would be one of the energizing factors for them, and it just did not turn out.
It was a ballot winner.
No, because again, you need to make sure if you're going to win a race like this, if you're going to win any race, you have to get the economy down first. It's very difficult to continuously fabricate the numbers and stretch them and pull them and manipulate them. To what degree it's being done, who knows? But at a certain point, when you're a potential voter, either a first-time voter or you've been voting Democrat your whole life, you've been voting Republican your whole life, doesn't really matter. Whenever you're a voter and you look in your pocket and you see nothing but lens, it's very difficult to care about Roe v. Wade. It's very difficult to care about the rights for this group or the rights for that group because you're having a hard time feeding yourself. You're having a hard time keeping your job. You're having a hard time making enough money. When that isn't being solved, then things don't work. You can't get to all of these other issues. You can't discuss them unless people are well fed. You can't. Just like you can't discuss philosophy when you're trying to build your village after you landed at Plymouth Rock. You can't. There's no room for philosophy. Oh, let's talk about the Socratic method. No, we have to build a village because winter is coming, and if we don't, we're going to die. That is the analogy I would give here. I think that's the analogy that everybody felt, whether they want to explain it that way or not. If you do not have your basic needs met, and if you feel like you're surviving, not thriving, you can't talk about issues that you want to address because, well, they're just not important enough yet.
Up until Donald Trump was on the ballot.
Yeah, and so when you talk about this idea of people who can sort of exist in different boxes and be parts of different categories, right, as we're seeing now with what Chuck Todd has called this realignment right now demographically of where the Republican Party is, there are people, and we have seen it now in states, who say, yes, let's enshrine abortion access and protect abortion rights. And I also want
What a
Donald Trump
picture.
to be in the White House. Again, Vice President Harris spent months casting these states as having Trump abortion bans, as she put it, and that did not resonate with some of the folks in these
We've
battlegrounds.
also seen this realignment.
What a picture.
What we've been calling the education gap, because we can't think of a better way to put it. But you're
No, that's a good way to put it.
see this line. The line of demarcation is not about race necessarily, and not necessarily about gender, but it falls on college-educated voters, non-college-educated voters. I remember.
That is the core issue of society at large here in America. If you have a college education, specifically a very good one, you are going to get better jobs. You're going to make more money. You're going to be favored in the hiring process. Your opportunities are much larger. If you don't have a college education, those opportunities have shrunk. And under Trump, you saw the wages for people without college education go up. It's very simple. If that is the driver, which it always is, how much money you're making, the opportunities you have in the workforce to provide for your family, to provide for your life, that's going to bring people out. You can't talk about the hot button issues when the elephant in the room hasn't been addressed, and that's the economy.
We're hearing a lot from the Democrats in the final days. Oh, Kamala Harris is such a diverse coalition. It's all the way from AOC on the left to Liz Cheney on the right. But that's all a party. That's an elite college-educated party.
Yeah, there's a fundamental similarity between those people.
Trump advisor just this morning, and he said something that I think is correct, and that we've seen this. Donald Trump has brought working class voters, period, across these racial lines, across these gender lines, into the Republican tent here, and that is different from what we've seen before. How long lasting is it? We'll see.
Mark
Right?
Rubio said something similar. He said,
Barron is so
"The thing
tall.
that matters in terms of these Latino voters is they're Americans."
And that is why you are hearing Democrats say we have to have a reckoning. We're hearing a lot of that word today because they have to look at the electorate differently, not in terms of different racial groups, but as you're saying, really meeting them, as one person said, where they are, talking to them about the issues they care about.
Thinking that half the country is waking up right this moment elated and cheering, and half the country is waking up this moment and saying, oh no, what's going to happen? Everyone's waiting for Kamala Harris to speak. Donald Trump did speak.
Yeah, that's the real issue right there. In terms of the Democrats' philosophy, is that, what a face, by the way. It's going to be difficult for them to address the electorate in a different manner because the ideology on the left prevents them from doing that. The ideology on the left is going to gear them towards looking at the electorate in terms of tiny subgroups when they have to change that in order to get the electorate back on their side. They're going to have to go to a fundamental shift in their psychology, in their philosophy. Whether that's faked or it's a real transformation, they're going to have to do one or the other because they simply cannot continue to attack the electorate and go after the electorate the way that they have and expect the results to pan out in their favor. It's not going to work unless they have a candidate that is just that appealing, that polarizing, that charismatic, that charming, etc. And Kamala Harris wasn't that, unfortunately. And I don't know who in the Democratic Party is. You need that to overcome the mistakes in campaigning, in messaging. But there's not really a strong man or a strong woman in the Democratic Party. For the conservatives, for the Republicans, there's a couple strong men, strong women in that party. You saw them support Donald. Perhaps as the electorate continues to change and the Electoral College in particular changes, 2030, there's going to be some big changes in terms of the census data. They might continue to run it because of how they've made the campaign messaging so much broader. They've gone deeper, not wider, and it's really paid off for them.
About healing. So what do you think as we go forward?
So I think this is an interesting question because there have been moments in the past when former President Trump, now President-elect Trump, has spoken about perhaps having a unifying message, and then that was not the message that he delivered. So I just look at the past 8 years of having covered him, of having him having been in the public spotlight here. He is somebody who has been crystal clear about his day one and his first priorities, and most of them are pretty controversial, depending on where you sit in the political spectrum here. So I think that is, I think back to Inauguration Day 2016, American carnage. He closed his campaign on this dark and defiant message, and so he doesn't have much incentive. He won the popular vote for the first time since he's been running for president in
Yeah.
cycles. He looks like he's going to do very well in some of these battlegrounds too. He has no incentive to change.
No.
If the message we hear from Vice President Harris is more unifying in tone, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney posted on X.
Well, that's the interesting thing there is if Trump was really smart, if Trump was really intelligent here, he would change because she makes a great point. Donald Trump and the Republicans have a mandate. They can do anything and everything that they want because the country has said, we support you, full faith. Go at it. He could do absolutely everything he wants with full immunity. But if he was a wise political actor, this is the moment where you actually begin to negotiate, you heal the wounds, you pull the Democratic Party closer to the Republicans, you work with them. This is that moment because it's the last thing you would expect on the left. It's the last thing you would expect from somebody who is afraid of what could happen over the next 4 years, depending on where you sit in the political sphere. The last thing you would expect is for him to be a mediator, for him to be a true negotiator, not a bully, and for him to actually hear out the other side. Caesar did this really, really well. He would give clemency whenever people were expecting ruthlessness. He would be merciless when people were expecting mercy. I think Trump is going to do that, but we'll have to wait and see.
These results, that's what our democracy is about.
Exactly right. All right.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the
Whoever this guy is. Yeah, well, Trump won. We'll see what's going to happen in 4 years, but that's the Democratic reaction, and we're going to keep following this because, well, I'm sure there are going to be some spicy updates moving forward. This was unexpectedly very easy to call. It was unexpectedly very easy to get this moving along. People thought this was going to be a lot more contentious, a lot more heated. People were calling for civil war and conflict amongst various groups. Maybe that is still yet to happen, and maybe it will. So we're going to continue to follow this. But yeah, if you gained value to this, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.